Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Bash Harry. This is the Harry Knit. We do a lot of knitting stuff. I am also a knitwear designer and we have two new FOs specifically to do with my knitting patterns. But I'm jumping over ahead of myself. Hi, it's been a while since I did my last knitting podcast. It's been a month, which I think has been pretty good, to be honest. My last podcast before the previous one I filmed was, I think, 3 months before, which has made me reflect back on why I decided to make podcasts. It was to do updates on my FOs, my whips, my yarn acquisitions, and all that stuff. But for the longest time, for some reason, I've been thinking that I just did not have enough whips to talk about. I did not have enough FOs. I didn't have enough yarn acquisitions, or there was nothing really that I was doing too much where it justified a very long podcast episode. This is not one of the times. For some reason, the past month, I've been really invigorated with new projects and working on my own stuff and talking about it. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. I have a lot to show you, which I'm really excited about. We've got like 3 FOs and a handful of whips, and I got some yarn from Singapore because I just got back maybe last week. I was there for a work trip. I met up with my tech editor. She's really nice. Her name is Karen. Go say hi to her. And I also got some knitting books that I want to talk about. So there's a lot of things going on in this podcast. I foresee that it's going to be a long one. So get your cup of coffee or your tea or your knitting needles and we'll just vibe together. It will be a vibe, I promise. This is how I know it's been a while since I've done a podcast, because I'm like, oh, what are we talking about? But it's like a regular knitting podcast format. We're talking about our FOs, our whips, and then some yarn acquisitions, but I also have some books I want to talk about. And I guess let's get started. I want to talk first about the most recent FO, or like the first FO that I finished this month. And that is the newly updated Mala sweater. If you've been on this channel, if you've been watching the podcast, you know that I actually finished the sweater originally last year in December. And then I got COVID, and then I couldn't bring myself to grade it or write the pattern or tech edit it. But in August, September, I was editing the pattern, and then I realized I didn't like the sleeves. For some reason, the sleeves just was not hitting the way that I wanted to. I think they were a bit too bulky, because I wanted it to be similar to the Rehat Sweater, which is what I'm wearing right now. This is a pattern that I released, I think, back in April. And if you want that sweater, I'll link it to my Ravelry down below, because I wanted it to be very open billowy sleeves. But this is using Drops Andes in the color Ice Blue, if I can remember correctly. And because of that, I wore this to Melbourne on my honeymoon, and it was really cold, and for some reason I think the sleeves were just not hitting it. It wasn't hitting the way that I wanted it to. And so after I came back, I decided to figure out the sweater sleeves again and decided to make it more straight. So this one requires a lot less yarn and it's less billowy, so it's a more straight sleeve, but it's still got that bulkiness that I really wanted in a sweater like the Mala sweater. It's currently out for a tester call. We're still looking for sizes 9, 8, 7, 6. So 6 to 9. If you are within that size range, please do send me a quick Google form sheet. It will be down below in the description, and I'd really love some help with some test knitting. I really like the sweater. I think it's really soft and the bulk is just very squishy. I really did enjoy wearing it out and about in the cold in Australia. Even though the sleeves were a bit off, it still kept me very warm. I think when I was in Australia, it was probably around like 9 to 13 degrees depending on the time and the day. So this was definitely much needed. It's a little different from the Rehat Sweater. I would say it's the chunkier big sister. This one has a different sleeve, and we also included ribbing everywhere, whereas the Rehat Sweater, this one is basically I-cord or crochet, because this one I foresee myself wearing during the spring, summer, when it's not too cold, but you still want to layer. This is what I wear. And plus, this is what I usually wear when I'm out and about, because I live in a tropical climate. I do want to wear my sweaters out, but I just have to adjust it so I can actually wear it out. This one, though, I can probably only wear when I am out in a different country, specifically one that is cold and wintry. But this is definitely going to be in my collection, which I'm really happy about. And if you want this in your collection, like I said, I do have a tester call happening right now. The initial plan was to have it tech edited and have the tester call in the testnet starting around this week. But unfortunately, the tech editing is taking a bit longer than expected, which is totally fine. I mean, we're going with the flow. It's a basic drop shoulder construction, and then we have the ribbing here and on the body. And then I've adjusted it so it's actually much longer than the intended size for me, because I have a tendency to crop my sweaters. I am not very tall. I have a very short torso. I think my legs are longer than my torso, so I'm about 5'2", I would say. 5'2" on a good day. 5'1.5" if I'm being honest. And so I tend to crop my sweaters. I did that with the Awan Vest as well, but after talking to some test knitters, I decided that we're gonna just lengthen it to the original person, and then they can modify it if they want to. So that's the plan with this mala sweater. I'm really happy that we managed to get this out in time, because I feel like it's been a languishing FO for about a year. So I had this in my collection, and yet no foreseeable plans to grade it, tech edit it, and write the pattern until now. But she's pretty and she's sweet, and I really love her. I have taken some photos with her, but we do plan on knitting another sample for the pattern, probably in a size 1, maybe in a size 3, but we'll have to see about that. I think the recommended yarn for this would be super bulky weight yarn. So Drops Andy's Line brand Thick and Quick would be really good for a sweater pattern like this. I wanted something that was also really easy for beginners to work on, because I think about it, I was a beginner a long time ago. So I wanted something that a beginner can probably knit up by themselves. So that is where the mala sweater came in. I've been really enjoying knitting her or redoing the sleeves. It's made me realize that it's okay to frog finished pieces, especially if you're not going to get as much use out of them, where if you ended up knitting a new version with the same yarn. So I'm really happy with my decision to fix the sleeves and make something that I'm really proud of and really happy with. It's just now a matter of time to get it tech edited, graded, make another sample, and then hopefully release it by the end of November, because I know our friends in the Northern Hemisphere have, I think it's probably winter around that time. It's probably getting really cold. I know it's getting really cold wherever you are, because most of my viewers are from the US. Here, it is very hot. I think it's like 32 degrees, and that is the usual thing that I deal with most days. But yeah, we've got the mala sweater, tester call, sign up below. That was the first FO that I wanted to talk about. The second one is, where is it? I don't know where it is. The second FO that I finished this month, it is my most recent FO, and I talked about it in the previous podcast. I was working on it as a whip. I started it on the 14th of August. That's what I wrote down in my knitting journal. And then I finished it probably on Friday, and then I blocked it the same day. This is what I'm going to call the Langit tank. I know that it's wild to be knitting a tank top for what is supposedly wintertime for you guys, or like fall winter, but this is something that I really wanted to make right now because I got this beautiful yarn by Wagtail Yarns when I was in Australia. This is 100% super kid fine mohair, if I can recall correctly. It is a 2-ply, it is lace, but I held it double. So I used 4 millimeters to create this really sheer, really pretty tank top. This is using I-cord edging, top and bottom, and then along the cuff. Initially, it was going to be like a vest version of the Awan Vest, like a lighter version. That's why I wanted to call it Langit. But then I worked on the pattern and I realized I didn't want to add ribbing to the armhole, and I didn't really want to add ribbing at the bottom. I like the way that it looks as a tank top. So that's what we're doing instead. This is now a tank top and it's pretty. It is slightly small for me. So I'm a 35-inch bust. This is a 30-inch bust. So somewhere along the lines, I think my gauge was off, but it's still pretty good for a size 1. I just have to accommodate and fix the measurement. And I'll probably have to redo my gauge swatches. I hope you can see how beautiful the yarn is. The color scheme is just absolutely gorgeous, especially since I held the yarn double. So you can see that I'd say this is more of a tonal yarn. From afar, it looks pretty solid, but then up close, you can see all the variegations of purples and pinks, and I really, really love it. One thing I noticed though about working with this mohair, and I don't know if it's a me thing or something happened with my knitting and my stitches, but there's a lot of not dropped, but they're like almost twisted, and I'm not entirely sure why. So I'm gonna show you an example if I can find one. So like here, I'd say, don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of knotted or twisted together. Even though I'm usually pretty consistent with my knitting, I don't often do twisted stitches, but I notice quite a lot of it when I'm working on this specific piece. It's like, to the average person or to the average non-knitter, they probably cannot see all those twisted stitches, but I can. It doesn't affect the way that I look at the pattern because I still think it's absolutely beautiful, but that's something to note. And if you have any tips, please do let me know. I would like to fix it when I work up the next sample. Like I said, this is made with fingering, like it's lace weight held together. So it made like a fingering DK sport weight yarn. So I used 4 millimeter needles. I am probably going to knit up a second sample in a different yarn just to give options. But if you do have any recommendations for yarn blends or fibers that would still give this really light look, I'd really appreciate that. I'm thinking silk would look really nice as a tank top like this. I think it would look really nice. We're also going to be adding some waist shaping and some bust darts, like right here. So anyone can wear it. So I'm really excited about that. I've been starting to get really into short rows. I'm still practicing how to properly grade it per design, especially since I like doing 9 sizes. I have to grade basically 9 different short row shapings for everybody. But I think that's a really fun challenge that would really make it complicated, but also I think it'd be really fun and a new skill to learn. So that is the plan for this tank top. I don't think it will be released anytime soon. If anything, it'll probably be spring, summer of next year, but I really do love the tank top, and I do hope that I can take photos with it very, very soon. I do need to take photos of this soon. But yeah, I really love the mohair. I just can't help but say how fun it was. Although I do note working with mohair sometimes can be very, very annoying. It splits very easily, and I definitely had that issue when I was working on this. It just broke apart so quickly, and I had to fix it. Thank goodness I had like 720 yards or meters of it. I had enough to make this tank top, so it's like a one skein wonder for me. But I can't wait to make more. I'm probably going to use Drops Kid Silk if I'm going to be working on a version of this in the fingering or lace weight pattern, and then using a silk blend or something else for the other versions. So I'm probably going to make a lot more samples of the Langit Vest before I do anything else, and then hopefully have it released in spring, summer of next year. But yeah, I think with me, I really do enjoy working with I-cord. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, I totally get it. But for me personally, I really love it. It gives such a nice clean finish. And it looks like something you can get out of like H&M or Zara. You probably won't get this at H&M or Zara. But it's cool, it's fun, it's a really nice tank top. The one thing I'll say about mohair though is you don't really want to wear it skin to skin because you shouldn't wash this as often. And for some people, mohair can be a little itchy. I do find it a little itchy on my skin too. My partner has sensitive skin, so I don't usually knit him anything with mohair anyway. But I've heard good things about alpaca silks. I know Drops has one, but I could be wrong. That's why I also want to give the other option of doing it in a DK weight. I just need to figure out a yarn blend that's like this light, because I like how light it is. It's not heavy, it's very light, which is exactly why I wanted to make it. So those are the two whips, and now I want to talk about the third whip not whips, FOs. I want to talk about my third FO. And if you've been watching this podcast for a while, you'll be surprised, because I used to say I hated making them. These are my first ever pair of socks in 2 years. I said in an old video 2 years ago that I really did not like making socks because I was making them for my partner at the time. It was Valentine's Day, and I was using Cascade Heritage prints and some 9-inch circular shorties. Turns out, I actually do really enjoy making socks. I just did not like the method that I was using, and I don't like making it for other people, or at least I don't like making it for my partner. These are the Itty Bitty Berry socks by Stone Knits. You can find her on Ravelry, on Instagram, anywhere where you can find patterns. I have been really interested in color work lately, and I wanted to do something that involved color work but not necessarily clothing, and I wanted to start knitting myself another pair of socks. So I decided to do the Itty Bitty Berry socks by Stone Knits. I did talk about this in the previous podcast, but they were too small for me, so I ripped everything back up and I started on the second size. It comes in 3 sizes, 1, 2, 3. I did number 2. I did size 2. And I think the reason why they were a bit tighter than what I expected was also because the pattern calls for 2.25 and 2.5 millimeters, but I didn't have that. I only had 2 millimeter and 2.5 millimeter. So I did this instead. So I sized up, and I think that worked out really well. I was worried about how tight it was going to be, but it ended up being really nice. And it fits like a glove. It's just tight enough that I can wear it out and about and not be worried. This is using Parkour Kitty fibers, Parkour Kitties fiber, based in Singapore. My partner got it for me when he was in Singapore back in January. We go to Singapore quite often. It's very close to Brunei. So this is their base. I think it's the fingering Merino Nylon blend 80/20 in the color Shock Pink as a base. And then the other colors for the pink and the green is from their Boo Skein set that I purchased. I cannot remember the name for the life of me right now, but that's what it is. The one thing that I would say about knitting socks is that I started doing the magic loop method instead, and I much prefer it over doing the circular shorties. I think the 9-inch ones really cramped my wrist and it made me not enjoy knitting socks at all. I would always go back to like my bigger projects. But using the magic loop method has been really helpful, but I think there is something off with my tension. So I think you can see it more prominently here. You can see those tight ridges right there, those bumps. That's where I tightened it to do the magic loop because I was really worried about it like forming a ladder. But because of that, I think I did it too tight and now it looks like this. It's not so obvious when I'm wearing it, but if you do have any recommendations on how to prevent this, please let me know. It would be really helpful. And with socks as well, you tend to get that little, I don't know if you can see it, but you have that little tiny hole there, which doesn't bother me too much. And I know there are YouTube videos out there. So when I'm knitting my next pair of socks, which I already am, I'll probably try to get that fixed. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about with this sock. One little mod that I did was that instead of doing a peacoat edge, I just did regular 1x1 ribbing. I like the look of a peacoat edge, but I knew that since this was my first pair of socks in a while, I probably just wanted to do the standard 1x1 rib. And honestly, I was so worried about if I had enough yarn, but I did have enough yarn. I have plenty of leftover yarn, and if I could change anything, I would definitely add a lot more length, probably maybe one more round of strawberries, because it hits around the ankle, and I think that's fine, but I think I would like it to be a little bit higher. So that's what I'm planning on doing with my other sock. It's nice. I think this is the third pair of socks that I've ever made. The first I think I made like 10 years ago, long time ago, and I still wear it even though it is like 100% acrylic. And then the second pair of socks was the one that I made for my partner that he doesn't even wear because it's too big on him. But these are perfect, and they're gonna start a very terrible cycle of me starting to work on multiple socks, probably at once, hopefully. These are so pretty. They're so pretty. They're really nice, and I really enjoyed making them. I think I had such a blast working with them, and I know a lot of people work on their socks when they're out and about, and that's exactly what I did with these. I think I will continue. The sock knitting will definitely be my more regular, schmegular, going out, need to bring something. I'll probably bring one pair of socks. At the time, I was thinking of doing 2 at a time, but I think in terms of logistics, that might be a little bit more difficult. So I'm perfectly happy with just doing one sock on one pair of needles and then interchangeable so they kind of work out at the same time. That's what I did with these socks. I would, if I'm doing a 2mm, I would do this one, and then I would switch to 2.5 and then 2.0 on these. So I was working on them at the same time, just on different needles. So yeah, the process was definitely slower, but I think I enjoyed it a lot more. So those are all my FOs. I think that is pretty nice, having 3 FOs in the month of September and actually finishing all the whips that I was talking about, except for one. I talked about it in the previous podcast, so I'm not talking about it more here, but I do want to mention it. This is the whip section. I can see this becoming my languishing whip. This is the Sunday sweater by Petite knit. I love the rust color. It's Drops Melody, and I'm using size, I think it was 5mm needles, and I did really enjoy knitting it up. It's just that I don't have any use to make a sweater anymore, especially since I initially planned on wearing this to Melbourne and then I didn't end up finishing it. The sleeves are not done, but the body is finally complete. I am going to put this on my mannequin, and I don't think I'm going to work on her until I know that I'm traveling somewhere cold in the near future, which hopefully is next year. Knock on wood, cross my heart. I would love to wear her out, but right now she is not someone I am wearing or knitting up, especially since I know that there are a lot more projects that I'm excited about. I don't really want to work on her right now. So she's beautiful. She was great while she lasted, but she will be a languishing whip for at least the next 6 to 8 months. I did like working on the pattern. I think Petite knit creates beautiful patterns. They're really classic and they're very elegant, but I don't think that's the vibe that I'm going for right now. I think about how I like my whips and how I like my projects, my designs, and everything to do with knitting. I think about what I like to make, and I think I don't really like making classic things. For example, the Stone Knits Itty Bitty Berry Socks. I love that it's so bright and it's a pop of color and they have strawberries on it. I like working with like lace in a different way than stranding it held one with something else. And so I want to work on patterns that really capture my eye, even if they're not necessarily the most classic to knit, because I know everyone needs like that classic sweater and everyone needs that classic sweater vest or socks. Those basic things are really great. But for me, I've never really enjoyed that. I don't really enjoy knitting that process, and I want something that's more fun, and I want to put the joy back in my knitting. And one way to do that is to make things that I actually want to make. So she was great. She's beautiful. No shade to Petite knit. Obviously, Petite knit does put out such great patterns. Just for me right now, this is probably not something that I'm going to hold on to. But thank you very much. I will probably have to finish the sleeves soon. And if I do make the sleeves next year, I'll do them 2 at a time instead of trying to work on the sleeves for like 2 weeks per sleeve, because I know I can get on Sleeve Island very quickly. So I'm going to try my best not to be on Sleeve Island. Another whip that I started this on Friday, and I am very surprised that it has gone a lot quicker than intended. I finally started my Ranunculus. This has been in every knitter's queue, I think, since it released. It's definitely one of the most popular patterns on Ravelry. I think it's got 25k projects already. And I had the inkling that I wanted to do a Ranunculus eventually. I knew that I wanted to make a Ranunculus. I've heard such great things about it. Everyone tells me that it's the best, and I'm like, it's so confusing. But I didn't get pushed to making it until I watched Chloe Knit's video about why the Ranunculus is so popular. And then I watched a couple of other videos talking about how the Ranunculus has been constructed, how they felt making it, and why they've made 3 and 5. So I was like, okay, I want to see what all the hype is about. So I casted on my Ranunculus as soon as I finished the Langit Vest. And I finished the yoke already. It's been 3-4 days. I finished the yoke, I separated the sleeves, and it's basically gone so fast. Do you see this yoke? You can't really see it with the yarn, but I'm sure once it's blocked and ready to go, it will look absolutely beautiful. This is using, I think I have it here. This is using my Yarn Story Co. hand-dyed yarn. This is 85% Superwash Merino and then 15% cotton. And it's 400 meters in the colorway Lavender Blue. And you can see that it's a lot more blue than lavender. It's tonal, very similar to the one by Wagtail Yarns, and I really do like it. What I appreciate a lot about the yoke is that it has different types of texture, and it keeps my brain working when I'm working on this piece. And so far, it's been really enjoyable to work on it. I did have some issue with starting it though. I think the ribbing is quite confusing, I'll be honest, the cast on. She initially calls for a tubular cast on with a crochet hook. I did not do that. I just did a regular tubular cast on without it. And I then did all the slips and the things. So I opted to go for a smaller neckline because I feel like with the wider neckline, it would have looked a little bit too baggy on me. Initially, I was going to knit the size 2, but then I saw how wide the measurements were, so I opted to go for a size 1 instead, especially since I'm hoping to only use one skein of the yarn. I've already winded it up. This is what it looks like. She's so beautiful when she's caked up. She's so pretty. And I'm hoping to just finish it. I'm hoping to finish the ball and do as much as I can with it because I really enjoy the color. And I've seen other people's videos, and I've been looking at the project page on Ravelry, and a lot of people who are doing my size have done it in just one skein, so I'm hoping that I'm able to finish the Ranunculus in one skein as well, and I'm really excited for that. Hopefully by the next podcast episode, which should be more consistent, I'll be honest, I hope that I can show you a new pattern, a new project already done. And I really like the blend of this yarn. Superwash merino and cotton is a very interesting mix. I think that's really fun, and I think it will be perfect to wear for the summertime. Some people say merino is really great to wear out and about. I am 50-50. Sometimes merino doesn't sweat me out, sometimes it does, but I think the cotton will definitely help. One thing, however, I will say about this yarn is that it's incredibly fragile. I think I was casting on at one point, and then the yarn just suddenly broke. And I didn't think I was too harsh with the yarn. I don't think I was being really aggressive. It just broke on me. And then I was like, oh no. So I'm being extra careful when I'm working on this piece. If I will have the time, if I find enough to say, I might make a full video about the Ranunculus, but if not, it will be on my next knitting podcast episode. So you should subscribe if you want more updates on this. I just love the color. I am using 2 size needles less because I did make a gauge swatch with the 6mm it called for, and then what should have been 14 stitches by 4 inches, it ended up being 11 stitches, and that would have been way too big. I decided to go 2 sizes down, so instead of 6, it's 5. And I think I'm going to do a slightly different blocking method. Instead of just dunking it in water, letting it sit for about 10-15 minutes as I usually do, I will probably try to steam block it, or I'm just going to douse it with water with a spray and then hope for the best. Because I really want this sweater to work, or at least this top to work, and I've been really inspired by working on it. It's been really fun. I think choosing patterns that I really enjoy working or am excited to work with has been so fun. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is my next sock whip. I have another sock whip because as soon as I finished the Itty Bitty Berry socks, I got really excited. I wanted to make another one, and I was looking through Ravelry for more colorwork pieces because I really enjoy working on colorwork socks. It was either I was going to do cables or colorwork one, and I was looking through Stone Knits. So I found my next whip. It's in this bag. It is the Sunflower Power socks in her Field of Sunflower set collection. I was wondering whether or not I should do it in the original Parkour Kitty fibers. This is the pink. Or do it in my yellow. This is, I think, West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply in the color Butterscotch. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with this one. Keep it in line with the Sunflower Power. I did get some Chow Gu needles when I was in Singapore, and they're great. Honestly, they've been really great. I did not realize how smooth they were. A lot of people have been talking about how great Chow Gu was, and I didn't believe it until I started knitting on this sock, and they're actually really great. But I will probably take this out, and then I will start working on a 2mm version for this color. The reason why I'm choosing this one here, let me show you. Initially, I wanted to do this color because I just love the color yellow. It's so much fun, and it would match with my, I think, Avonham cardigan by Lily Kate Makes. I do like the color. I love yellow, and I'm gonna match it with, let me get the yarn. It's in my yarn pile there. I'm matching it with Shopagee's, it's not Shopagee's, it's Chopel Admiral Melange sock yarn. I don't know what the color is. It doesn't really say on Ravelry or on here, but it's a gray. And pairing these two together, I think will be very, very pretty for a pair of colorwork socks. So the cuff will be yellow, and then I'm gonna knit the rest in this main color in gray, and then the sunflowers in this color. I am very excited to work on this. There's not much else to say. I'm doing it in a size 2, and I'll probably stick to the same number of needles that I'm working on, so 2.5 and 2mm on 80-inch cables. I don't think I'll ever go back to using shorties ever again, especially since I figured out how to do the magic loop method. My only worry is trying to figure out how to do or to prevent that little tight bump while still preventing ladders, because I'm worried about both of them, because that's an issue that I've heard when knitting up socks. I do look forward though to start my sock collection. I think it'll be really fun. I probably won't wear them out when I'm going to the gym, but they'll be nice to wear out and about, especially if I'm at meetings and I gotta look professional. These are my fun way to look kind of nice, you know? I think with this, I do want to explore other sock knitters that do color work. I've seen good things about Summer Lee. I saw her book when I was at Kinokuniya, and I was really tempted to buy it, but then I was like, I know she sells it on Ravelry, so I might as well just buy it on Ravelry. But yeah, these are my upcoming plans, and I'll probably take this slow, so whenever I'm going out, I will bring my sock yarn and just work on it and just enjoy the vibe. This is using, as I said before, West Yorkshire Spinners, I think. And I do have enough to make it. I think I'm definitely going to make the length a lot longer than what's recommended in the pattern, because I do like a long sock. I just hope that everything goes well. If you have any recommendations on how to properly wash socks without them like tightening up, that will be great. I haven't researched too much about it, so I'd really love to know. For me, a lot of the socks that I buy from the shops, they're made of cotton, so I can just toss them in the wash and call it a day. But I really do want to take care of the hand knitted socks that I've made. If I could, I'd probably make my husband a pair for himself, but we'll just have to see if he's nice enough. I don't know, I feel like I'd probably make him one with skulls on it. I think that'd be really funny. He might not like that though. This video is already like 41 minutes long, and I still haven't got into my yarn acquisitions, and I still have one more whip I want to talk about, which is not even started. It's more like a plan. It's just this for now. It was an Untitled Vest that I made back in February. I finished it in January, I think, and I talked about it in a podcast. It was my sweater vest that I knitted with Hamanaka. I will leave the yarn in the description below. And it's made with 50% alpaca, 50% wool. When it was blocked, it stretched really, really too much, to be honest. And it made me really worried that I wasn't able to wear it because it was just too big on me. What should have been maybe 4 to 8 inches of positive ease ended up being 20. And because it just ate up so much yarn, I didn't have enough to do a proper gauge swatch because I had to rip the original gauge swatch up, and I didn't have the foresight to jot it down, or if I did, it was incorrect post-blocking, especially since it was just way too big. So what I did instead was, after doing the mala sweater, I realized, as I said earlier, it was okay to frog and start all over on a project that you believed in, but you just want to fix. So that is exactly what I did. I frogged the whole vest. I filmed it, so hopefully there will be a video about it. And I washed it, and now it's strung up. It's still a little wet. It's been hanging for, I think, the past 4 or 5 days, and it's still a little wet. So after it's done, I'm probably going to hang this back just so it like fully dries completely before I wind it back into a ball and actually start working on the vest again. It is a cable vest with seed stitching and a lot more other works on it, and I was really excited to grade it and then tech edit it, but because it ended up so big, I just got really sad. I was like, this is not working out. What is going on? And I was trying my hardest to find a bulky weight or a worsted weight yarn that would match this. I swatched my Tweed Delight. I swatched my Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. I swatched my, what else did I swatch? I swatched my Empire 10 ply from Empire and Sons and by Morris and Sons, and it just didn't work out. So I realized I might as well go back to the original, frog it, and start all over. Especially since I've regraded the pattern and I kind of know what the rough gauge is and I know what size I want to knit and the numbers. I'm just following my own pattern and just making sure that it works and I could have a fully functioning vest for next year. I'm hoping to start maybe this week on this sweater vest and then have it properly graded and tech edited next month so I could release it around January, February. It's been really fun to like frog this, unravel everything and making it all nice. But you know, it's a bit sad. I wish it worked the first time around, but I'm still a very, very small knitwear designer and some things don't turn out well. That's okay. We gotta move on. We gotta figure things out. It's called being efficient, smart, thinking outside the box. Something to do with corporate wording. I don't know, synergy. I went to Singapore for work. That's what we were talking about. Synergies, collaborations. It was that kind of business talk, and now I'm ready to not think about it right now. I want to talk about knitting. I want to talk about yarn. Tangent aside, I am very excited to work with this again. You should have seen it when it was just like frogged because it was so tight. It was bouncy. Like it looked like ramen noodles for the longest time, but I really enjoyed working on this and I can't wait to skein it up. One tip I have for washing yarn is definitely to tie it in a different color so you actually know where it is. And then, because if you do it at the same color, it might get lost in the sauce. So that is exactly what I did with this. You can see a lot of strands just tightening around because some of the yarn, for example, like this one, don't know if you could see, this one, I had to knot it because I did not have enough yarn to do a whole piece. It was like maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 rounds. So I was just bulking it up as much as I could. And I ended up with 4 of these. that I can work with. So just tune in. That video will be up on this channel. And now I think it's time for our yarn and other acquisitions. Should I start with my yarn or should I start with my books? I'll start with the yarn. I think that'll be fun because I did get this much yarn. I'm going to put it to the side. But I wanted to talk about them because I'm really excited to work with the yarn. And I also got some books. Oh, these are heavy. That I haven't talked about and I haven't put them on my Instagram or anything yet, but I do intend to. Let's start with the yarn and I'll go through this hopefully quickly enough. I went to 3 stores when I was in Singapore. We didn't have a lot of time off when we were in Singapore. I think we were working morning to evening, but we did have some pockets in the day where we were able to do stuff. And I went to Yarning Hearts, Spotlight, and Tiny Rabbit Hole. The first place that I went to was Yarning Hearts, where I met up with Karen, my tech editor. And I was looking through the yarns, and the first one that caught my eye was this sock set by Big Little Yarn Co. She is a yarn dyer based in Japan. I've been watching her for a while now. I think I've been watching her for like 2 years already, since 2022. This is her sock set in the color, I think this is Strawberry Jam, and this is in the color Shiso. It is 75% Superwash Merino, 25% Nylon. This one here is 400 meters. This one is 80 meters. And this is just a sock set that I really think is so pretty. It caught my eye almost immediately. A lot of her colorways caught my eye immediately. I've always wanted to get something from her, but she doesn't ship to Brunei. She ships to Malaysia, but she doesn't ship to Brunei. So I thought, you know what, maybe I'll buy it if I'm ever in Japan. But when I saw this at Yarning Hearts, I got really excited and I immediately bought a sock set. Initially, I wanted to buy a sweater quantities worth, but that was not in my budget. Especially since I knew I wanted to get some yarn for my own personal designs. I knew that I just could not do that. Decided to settle on getting her sock set since I was already getting really into yarn at that time, getting into sock knitting at the time. So I decided to get this one. It's her Trusty sock set, and you can find her on Instagram and YouTube. I've been watching her for a while. I really just enjoy her. Her voice is so cute, and she just calms me down. Whenever I'm knitting or I'm working on some videos, I always put her on, and some other knitting podcast. She's probably one of my favorites. So highly recommend getting it if you're able to. It's really cute. It's really fun. Another project, another yarn that I got from them, and this relates back to my Langit Vest. I was thinking that I wanted to make something, or I wanted to make the vest out of silk instead. So I found this. This is Rosarios for Madragoa, and it is 100% silk in this really nice teal green. I want to say it's a blue-green. It shifts more to like a mint color. I don't often use green in my knitting. For some reason, I just don't really like the look of green. I think mint and teal is as far as I will go for a green color, but I've been really enjoying this. It is 100% silk, and it uses 28 stitches by 38 rows using 2.5 millimeter needles. I bought 4 balls of this, 4 skeins of this. So I have about 200 times 4, it's about 800 meters of this, which I think is definitely enough to make a tank top or a tee. I do want to redo the Langit Vest, whether with this or doing another type of yarn, I don't know yet, but I definitely know this will be perfect for a summer tank. I'm worried a little bit about it being 100% silk, since I've heard that silk grows over time, especially if you're making a tank top. It kind of weighs down with gravity, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. that is something that I totally understand. I'm just gonna hope that it turns out well. This is definitely like, I want to say a fingering or sport weight yarn, so I think a fingering tank would look really nice with this, and the color is just, like I said, I don't often use green, but this mint is absolutely beautiful. The yarn is covering my light. It's nice. This is all the way from, I believe it's Portugal, but I could be wrong. I did see it on Ravelry when I was adding it to my yarn tracker, but I really do like the color, and it's silk. I don't think I have any silk in my collection until now. Another thing that I did when I was in Singapore is I went to Spotlight for a little bit. Spotlight is this huge Australian conglomerate for crafts. Think of it as the Hobby Lobby of the US, I think, or Michael's. It's definitely one of the larger stores, and they have it available in Malaysia and Singapore. I went to the one in Malaysia back in January when I was doing some wedding planning, and then I knew there was a store in Singapore in Plaza Singapura. My mom used to go there quite a lot when I was younger. A lot of Bruneians like to go to Plaza Singapura. It's got a lot of great halal food. Anyway, I did not actually get that much when I was in Plaza Singapura because I knew later that afternoon I would be going to Tiny Rabbit Hole on my own. But I was thinking of getting some cotton yarn because I have quite a bit of cotton, but they're only 50 grams. And they're only maybe one ball of every colorway, like the one that I got from my Fibra Natura that I got when I was in Australia. So I decided to get their 4 Seasons Flinders yarn. This is, I think, DK weight, if I'm correct. It uses 4mm needles, 21 stitches by 29 rows. And it's your basic 100% cotton yarn. Nothing too fancy to talk or say about it. I got about 5 balls of this, and it is 115 meters. You can do the math yourself. I'm not very good at this kind of math. And the reason why I decided to get this, just got a lot of the drops melody on it. And the reason why I got this is because I am working on a tee that uses different color works, but I know that I would not have enough white as a base, so this is what I decided to do. I know a lot of people are experiencing fall right now. I'm kind of getting the vibe as well with the Ranunculus and my sweater vest project, but I also have to think about what I like making, and what I like making is summer knits. So for me personally and on this channel, a majority of what I make is for summer knitting with some like sweaters like sprinkled in there. But most of the time I like knitting summer projects that I can actually wear out, which is totally fine. I think, to each their own. If it's a sleigh for you, it's a sleigh for you. But for me, I will stick to my summer outfits, which is why she's a languishing whip for now. Anyway, let us continue. Like I said earlier, I went to Tiny Rabbit Hole, and it's so unfortunate that I went there when they were working on a class. I think I went there on, I want to say I think I went there on a Saturday. It was a very busy day for me because I think I had a dinner with my partner, and then we had to rush to my friend's performance because it was their first time performing in Singapore, and we really wanted to go. So I only maybe spent an hour and a half taking the underground to Tiny Rabbit Hole, purchasing the yarn, and then zipping out. So all in all, it wasn't that long that I stayed there, but I did manage to get some damage to my wallet because it was probably the most expensive because I got Malabrigo. I do have some Malabrigo with me. I initially got the Schopel. Let me grab it. I got the Schopel Admiral Melange from them. This one that I was talking about earlier, because I was talking to the owners and I was asking for recommendations for sock yarn. They recommended this. They were trying to get me to get the different colors, like the stripes or the variegation, but I don't really like the look of striped socks. I think I'd rather stick with like fun color work, and I thought the gray was a nice base that wasn't like black or white, because I knew that if I knitted with white yarn it would have definitely gotten dirty very quickly. At least with this gray, it's a nice color for a base that I can see any work that I'm doing, and I think with the yellow it's gonna look so beautiful, the socks. It is got this rustic feel to it. It's quite squishy because it's in a hank, and it is, how much yarn is this? It's 420 meters, so it's a lot. Probably only going to use half of this for the socks that I'm currently making. But I'm really excited to work with this. As soon as I'm done filming this video, I am going to start putting all my yarn away and actually start making the socks properly. Another thing that I got, like I said earlier, I did get Malabrigo. I am working on some other designs and I needed to stock up. So this one here is their Malabrigo Arroyo in the color 872 Purpuras. And it's this beautiful, I want to say violet color. You can see the tone right there. I don't know why, but my first thought when looking at this was, oh, it's so Twilight Sparkle coated, just with the way, or even Rarity coated. I don't know if you've ever watched My Little Pony. My baby sister's obsessed with it, so I've also watched a couple of episodes. Like, just the way that the color looks is absolutely beautiful, and you can see all those shifts in purple that I really, really enjoy. I like the idea of a DK weight sweater vest that's like a classic, something that I can like throw over. So I think this is my next project, hopefully. I'm gonna prioritize my initial sweater vest though, the one with the cables, because I know that I've been having it in my head for the past year, so I want to get that done, and then I will start working with this sweater vest with this yarn. And last but not least, in this very quick yarn acquisition, I got some more Malabrigo. Yay! This is their chunky yarn in the color Damask Rose. It is 95 meters each, so I would say this is about, I'm going to say roughly about 300 meters. I know that's not correct, but I'm not very good at math, am I? Yeah, this is about 95 times 3. The number is there somewhere. This is such a beautiful pink. It almost pulls purple in the camera, but it definitely is like a very saturated, and I don't know if you can see, but it's not fully solid either. There is some subtle tones, but it's extremely subtle. Like right there, you can see it's a lot lighter than here. And the same goes for all the colors. I hope that once I figure out the sweater vest for this, I want to start working using this yarn. That I just have to see if it's enough. If not, I know this would be very perfect for some hats that I'm thinking of making as well. So this is a very fun yarn. Nothing too fancy to say. I am planning on making a lot of projects for next year. I don't know if you want an update with that, because those are my own personal projects and my own designs. But if you do want to know, please let me know. I might make a very long-winded video about that. But that is all that I want to talk about for my yarn acquisitions. And I'm going to talk a little briefly about the books that I got, because I got 3 books from Kinokuniya the next day. We flew off on Sunday night, very late. So in the afternoon, we did stop by at Takashimaya, which is this really huge shopping mall in Singapore on Orchard Road. And there was a Kinokuniya. I was very worried that they didn't have a knitting section, but then when we found it, I was honestly very impressed with what they had. I saw that they had Jamie Creates there and a lot of other knitting books, and it was a lot more filled than the Kinokuniya in Malaysia. And so I got these 3 books from them, and they're all to do with knitwear design. I know that I want to start updating my book collection, especially when it comes to reading and understanding things. Yes, I could always look up online on the best ways to do this and that, but books are so great to have all that information consolidated, which is why I will, for better or for worse, I'm probably going to buy the book version, even if there's like a website dedicated to it. And plus, it's a great way to support other writers. Me, I have history of being a writer. I have published a book, and I always appreciate it when somebody buys the book directly. It helps me out, it helps my publishers out, and honestly, everyone gets something good out of it. And that's why I'd always rather purchase a book. And plus, I'm a physical person. I like having physical books instead of ebooks. I do have an ebook about knitting on my Kindle, and yet I never read it because I'm somebody who likes to ruin their books. This is the book that I'm currently reading. It is the Knitting Pattern Writing Handbook by Christina McGrath and Sarah Walworth. They're the editors of Tech Tip Talk. And when I say I like to ruin books, I know some people really do not want their books to be ruined. They're always keeping it pristine. They're keeping it cool. It's so nice. Looks good as new. I am not that person. I stuck a key to my book, and whenever I feel like I resonate with a word or there's some really important information, I will highlight it. I will dog tag it. I will add stickers to the book so I actually remember where the page is, like in this one. This has actually been a really great book. Specifically, their chapter about gauge, I think, has helped a lot with my understanding on what to do with gauge, and maybe the reasons why the gauge that you knit is not necessarily the same gauge that you get on a sweater vest or a sweater, for example. So I'm still going through this book slowly. I've been reading it on and off whenever I'm in between work or I'm doing something. Maybe like I have 10-15 minutes of spare time and I didn't bring my knitting or I'm already done for a row. I'll just check this out and I'll start reading it. They also have standard sizing, which I think is always really great. I think it's the Craft Yarn Councils, but it's always really good to have different standard sizing here. I don't know if I should show you though. You should just buy the book because it's great. And yeah, I think it's been really interesting. I definitely am going to start highlighting it a lot more. If I can, I'm probably just going to photocopy some of this for my own reference on my laptop. But that is the plan with this book. I'm sorry if you're somebody who likes to keep their books pristine. That is not me. I love to ruin my books. I've been like that since I was a kid. It just makes me feel like the book is mine. And in the next few years, in a decade or something, I will be putting or giving this book away. I hope the person who receives this book will find my notes and everything that I've jotted down here helpful. Like I have some books that I got on thrift shops where it has notes and things. And I think it creates a lot more character for the book to know that it was used and used well and loved. That's how I feel about my books. Tangent aside, let us continue with the next book. It is Deborah Newton's Finishing School, a masterclass for knitters. So this one talks a lot about finishing your knits, and she also provides different types of finishes, but not just that. Also different examples. I haven't gone through this book yet. I've only perused it briefly, but I really like the different tips that she has. She has like one thing about steeking, different edging, special finishings and edgings and all the things that you wanted to learn about knitting. And it's really inspired me to really figure out the different ways you can knit something. Because I know that I've just been doing stockinette, but there's so much more you can do, whether it's like cables or like loops or edging. I think is really, really pretty. I've been really into lace like this, and I use some of those kind of components when I was working on my bandana. So I want to do more of that in the future, and I think this book will really help me. Can you imagine having a lace with beads, something like this? I don't know if you can see it, but I think it would be really pretty to put in whether a shawl or a scarf or even a bandana. That would be so pretty. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this book. And then another book that I have, and this one I've seen on, I think it was, I can't remember who, but there was a YouTube video that I was watching about book recommendations. I had purchased this book already, and then they recommended that book, and I was like, I made a good choice. It is 250 Japanese Knitting Stitches, the original pattern Bible by Hitomi Shida, and this is just a pattern book with different types of stitches you can do. I think it's divided by open work, overall patterns, pattern arrangements, crossing stitches. There's so many stitches in this book. And I have some that are similar. I do have this one. Oop, sorry. This is by Wendy Bernard, the ultimate all-around stitch dictionary. And I use this sometimes when I'm working on patterns, or I'm working on some patterns with open mesh. I really do like this book. I think it's definitely for beginners though. This one feels a lot more professional, and I will say it's very intermediate. Like, they don't even give you the written instructions. Most of it is chart, for example. So keep that in mind if you do plan on purchasing this. I think it's definitely more for an intermediate who's interested in learning more about stitch. Whereas the one that I got back in January from Kinokuniya, Malaysia, this one is more for beginners and different types of knits, knit stitches that you can do pretty easily. And this one I think is a lot more beginner friendly. Those are the three knitting books I got. But I did want to give a very quick shout out to another book that has given me inspiration. That's not necessarily a knitting book. It's actually a history text. This is Golden Woven Fabrics of Brunei Darussalam. This is a book by Siti Noor Kalbi Haji Wahsal Felah. She created this book in 2017, and it talks all about Brunei fabrics. I'm Bruneian. I've been born and raised in Brunei my whole life, and I've wanted to create patterns that are very similar to Brunei designs and our traditional elements in our fabrics. However, there wasn't really a lot of books dedicated to that. And then I talked to my friend who does Kitani Creative. Her name is Akila. And I asked her if she knew anybody. And so she recommended me this book. I bought it at our local bookstore called Nolly Book. And in it has different patterns and designs all made in Brunei Darussalam. These fabrics are woven, so they're not knitted, they're woven, but I think it would be absolutely beautiful to pair them together and have them like connected. I think it would be really fun. There's also sources and symbolisms of the motif that I really want to learn more about. So this is definitely a resource book that's specific to me and my intentions with my knitwear. Hopefully in the near future I'll be really excited, but for now that's all I want to talk about. I don't think this book unfortunately is available in other countries. If it is, I'll let you know. But if you want to learn more about different types of knitting and fabrics, go to your local shop, go to your local store, and maybe they'll have one there. It's always fun to research and really understand fabrics the way that it is intended, I think, and just playing around and seeing what can change and what can be updated. I think that is all from me. This is probably my longest podcast in a while, and I'm actually kind of happy about that. I'm happy that I managed to yap about yarn for over an hour, but I am getting hungry. If you like this video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Bash Harry. I make new videos every week, and I will see you later. Okay, bye!